Today, the Super Bowl turns 30.
Come on, boys. Let's split.
It was January 1976 when the Cowboys and Steelers met in Super Bowl X. Pittsburgh anticipating their second title. Dallas playing their hearts out, but the curtain closed and the Steelers emerged victorious. 3 years later, they met again in Super Bowl XIII, with Pittsburgh prevailing once more. The road back to the Super Bowl for the Steelers has been long and winding, 16 years. Week 1 of this season, key injuries set an unfavorable tone for the year, and the Steelers struggled, losing games they were expected to win. At 3-4, the playoffs were a distant hope, but the terrible towels continue to twirl, and the Steelers responded. 8 straight wins and a new attitude. Now Pittsburgh looks for their 5th Super Bowl win in as many tries. The Dallas Cowboys, their 8th appearance, also seeking a 5th trophy. A team that's always in the spotlight. That light shone brighter with a mid-season arrival. But the team struggled more than in recent years with surprising losses. Now these Cowboys are hungry again, and a 3rd title would anoint this team among the all-time greats. It's the Steelers and the Cowboys next on ESPN Super Bowl Game Day. So many memories of the first 29 years of the Super Bowl. Who knows what everlasting images will be carved this afternoon on the arid mesa at Sun Devil Stadium. Getting towards T-minus 4 hours till kickoff in Tempe. And as the entire Southwest is already bustling on a Sunday morning, the rest of the nation and world turns its attention to the land of the tumbling sagebrush, the Gila monsters, and the cacti, not to mention our set at the Arizona Center. I don't know who the Gila monsters are, but we got 90 minutes to figure that out. Hi, everybody. I'm Chris Berman. Thank you very much for spending some of what's become a sacred day in America and around the world, Super Bowl Sunday, spending it with us. We are 90 minutes here for the 9th time. 9 years.
9 years.
I'm teamed up with still tiny Tom Jackson. It's getting close to 9 years for Joe Theismann, but we'd like to welcome his first Super Bowl. Well, not his first. That famed receiver all those years, my esteemed colleague, the Green Bay Packers, Max McGee.
And I was out all night.
Yeah, I figured. I was wondering who got in earlier, you or Max. Wearing more pinstripes than all the Yankees. It's the 30th Super Bowl, but the first one played in America's 48th state. It's been a week of memories, and how can it not be when you put the Dallas Cowboys and Pittsburgh Steelers together in a Super Bowl? You've just seen glimpses of those great Super Bowls, 10 and Super Bowl 13, both 4-point Pittsburgh wins. Those Steelers made history, winning 4 Super Bowls in 6 years, the standard. But these are the 90s, and these Cowboys can make it 3 Super Bowls in 4 years, setting a new standard themselves. Can Barry Switzer follow Jimmy Johnson's 2 Super Bowls, who, by the way, followed Tom Landry's 2 Super Bowls? And can Bill Cowher, now in his 4th year succeeding his own legend, add on to Chuck Noll's 4 Super Bowls? Guys, that's the stage that's set today. Pretty good one.
Well, we're excited because there's going to be a football game, and I think this game is going to come down to experience, and the Dallas Cowboys have the edge. Yes, they have 27 players who have never played a Super Bowl. Fortunately for Cowboy fans, most of them will not start. 20 of the starters, they've been here, they've done this, they'll go on the field very confident today. The Steelers, on the other hand, virtually no experience.
I want to start this show out like we start most shows, Tommy. I disagree with you vehemently about the experience factor, and I'll tell you why. I remember the Washington Redskins, which I was a part of in 1983, going to Pasadena. No one on that football team had any Super Bowl experience, and we won. Then I remember a veteran Super Bowl team of the Washington Redskins in 1984 traveling to Tampa Bay to play the Los Angeles Raiders. Everybody on that team had Super Bowl experience, and we got our butts handed to us 38-9. So I don't place a whole lot of credence in experience. I got to be honest with you, Sterling.
Me neither, Joe. This is my first one, and I'm doing great, I might add. But I want to get right on the field, and I think experience and Kevin Williams have returning the football on the special team side. Punts and kickoffs are going to be big in this game because he's concentrated really hard on being the second receiver. Ron Starks has also had trouble punting the ball, a lot of low kicks, a lot of line drives, and a few shanks in there. So if Kevin Williams can get it going, Dallas might get a quick jump start.
If everything's even, it looks like it should be Dallas's game. But the intangibles, the special teams with Pittsburgh, the fumble here and there, and watch out. But Pittsburgh better not get a little bit too hyped up and fall behind, or else Dallas may put the hammer down. That's where the experience might come in. Well, there are signs of life at Sun Devil Stadium, about 20 or 25 minutes from our Arizona Center broadcast location. And if there are signs of life, you know our Chris Mortensen and Andrea Kramer are on the scene. They've been with the teams all week. Let's hear from both, starting with Mort. Good morning, Mort.
Buenos dias, Senor Boomer. Well, Sun Devil Stadium is not a new site for the Cowboys, but this is a new field. 90,000 square feet of new sod, which is why Emmitt Smith spent some extra time with turf guru George Toma on Saturday, testing the fresh grass to see how he can make his turns and cuts. The Cowboys feel the extra week of preparation really benefits them more than the Steelers, who have some schemes that the Cowboys either haven't faced this year or have struggled with, specifically the Steelers' 3-4 defense, the first time the Cowboys have played that, along with the various blitz packages. The Cowboys have a tendency to struggle early in games against the blitz. Likewise, the Cowboys' defense has had trouble with multiple receiver sets like the Steelers use, which is why getting to quarterback Neil O'Donnell is huge today. So the key, the return of defensive end Charles Haley, who will start and get in about 30 to 35 plays. If the Cowboys do any blitzing, look for it to come from linebacker Darren Smith, who has plenty of incentive. Remember, he was a contract holdout in October. Jerry Jones has promised him a $100,000 bonus today, but only if the Cowboys win Super Bowl 30. The Steelers have something to say about that, so let's check in with Andrea Kramer. Good morning, Andrea.
Good morning, Mort. Steelers Director of Football Operations Tom Donahoe told me that after 2 weeks of excellent practices, we have no excuses. Still, how will the team handle the rush of running out here for the first time in the biggest game of their careers? Even Bill Cowher, nicknamed Face for his intense nature, has jitters inside. And yesterday he told me that's one reason he'll improvise his pregame speech.
Usually my talk, I write it down, but it's going to just roll off my tongue. I'm not sure exactly what I'll say, but I want him to go out and just not recognize how we got here, the things we did to get here, and to approach it in the same manner.
The Cowboys have a number of playmakers, including one with the nickname Michael Irvin. For the Steelers, they need their playmaker to be Cordell Stewart. And you could even see him in a quarterback for an entire series, not just an isolated third down. Defensively, Pittsburgh must use its speed to counteract Dallas's size advantage up front. They can't get into one-on-one matchups with the Earth Movers, Dallas's offensive line. The Steelers have success bringing people when and from where they're not expected. And the coaches told me they must pressure the run game more, get the run blitz going. They have to contain Emmitt Smith inside the tackles. Chris, they can't let him run wild for 171 yards as he did in their meeting last year.
Andrea, thank you. Watch out for that helicopter. That's okay. Andrea and Mort will be back a little bit later on. Let's break down Super Bowl 30, and let's start with strength versus strength. And can it be any more strength than the running of Emmitt Smith? 1,773 yards in the regular season is best ever, not to mention, oh, by the way, an NFL record 25 touchdowns. But the Steelers stack up the run as well as anybody. Only San Francisco ranked ahead of them this season in run defense. But, Tommy, you know, people forget. Brett Favre won the MVP, and rightly so. But the middle of the year, November 1st, Emmitt was, no pun intended, a runaway choice there. People kind of forgot about him as the season went on. Oh, by the way, until the playoffs. He's the MVP of this team.
Well, no doubt, and Emmitt took things to a new level for the Cowboys. Every NFL player knows that one of the most important things you do as the seasons begin to stack up is take care of your body. Emmitt Smith finished off a complete 16-game schedule this year, unlike last season, due at least in part to his new lease on life. January 1995. Emmitt Smith didn't look so good. An injury-plagued season had come to an end without a Super Bowl appearance. It was at that point he knew a change was in order.
He put a lot of burden of what happened at the end of last season on his shoulders. He felt it because he got hurt in the championship game and he was playing periodically towards the end of the year that, you know, I'm sorry, guys, you know, I didn't take care of my body as well as I should have and I let you down.
You start hearing all the negative criticism about the carries and wear and tear on the body, and he's starting to fall apart. You're starting to hear all those things, and you know in the back of your mind it's not true. It's just that you got to apply yourself a lot more than what you've been doing in the past.
Emmitt, I've never seen him train like he trained this offseason. Never.
I did water, running on the underwater treadmill, and that knee high, waist high, chest high. strengthening on the hamstrings.
He's just more conscious of his body because he's taking a beating, and he knows it.
I changed my eating habits a little bit, threw out the red meat, put down the alcohol and quit the drinking, and went to drinking water.
I don't know if he told you that, but he drinks a lot of water and he stays hydrated.
Drinking water, he drinks water all day, you know? I mean, he really take care of himself now.
The work week begins the same each Monday. While most players spend their time on a training table, Emmitt Smith rests here on a massage table in an effort to treat all the little aches and pains that come with his 20 or so carries every Sunday.
As much as he does around here in the weight room, on the practice field, in the meeting room, he walks out of here and does just as much with a chiropractor, with a masseuse, any avenue that he can approach to try and keep himself healthy.
The results are hard to argue with. Career highs in carries, yards, and touchdowns.
It showed in the season he had in the playoffs, and hopefully it'll show here in the Super Bowl.
My whole perspective of it all just totally changed. And I said, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to be committed to this, and I'm going to look at the end results. And so far, the end results have been so positive, I just want to continue that up.
Some say Emmitt Smith is not the best running back in the game. Some say that any running back can run through the cavernous holes created by the Dallas offensive line. The Cowboys say different.
He's a great running back, and he's behind a great line, but they are great because they are together, and they expect so much from each other.
Your style is a perfect fit for what this offensive line does. Why is that?
Because they go off on the ball and smash. We smash mouth it. And I'm not going to be sitting back there dancing around a great deal. I'm going to hit it hard.
He's a power runner, and we're a power running game team.
Emmitt Smith is a perfect fit.
The answer.
The answer?
Is the answer. I mean.
Why?
Because he runs the way it need to be ran in order for us to be the players we are.
Nate's no dummy. Eric's no dummy. These guys know, hey, we block hard, Emmitt will pick the right hole. Emmitt picked the right hole, ching ching, Emmitt makes more money. Emmitt makes more money, ching ching, we make more money. You know what I mean? It's a trickle-down effect.
Coach Barry Switzer told me that they have to get 100 yards from Emmitt Smith to win, but it's not only the yards that are important, it's time of possession. If the Cowboys can score 35 points, they use up so much of the clock that, Sterling, you don't have enough time to score with them.
And the reason you don't have enough time talking about that running game is the scheme that the Dallas Cowboys in the running game uses. As we'll see in the game last year against Pittsburgh, it's a power blocking scheme. The Pittsburgh Steelers are a power two-gap team, and you see the gaping hole that Emmitt Smith has to run through right here. And what you want to do with that power blocking scheme is a lot of people say you got to stunt and you got to twist. If you saw on the outside Greg Lloyd trying to twist to get inside, they picked him off. Joe, the three inside guys for the Pittsburgh Steelers got to play as big as they look.
You're absolutely right, Sterling. And I think the thing that I see about this Pittsburgh defense to try and contain Emmitt, and I think that's very important psychologically. You can't stop him. You won't stop him. But you have to try and contain him a little bit, is let the three guys inside lock up on the offensive linemen. If they can, occupy two of them and allow what I consider the best group of linebackers in football today to be able to fill the gaps, to fill the voids where Emmitt wants to cut back. I think patience and disciplines are two key words for Pittsburgh's defense today against Emmitt.
You know, guys, sometimes Emmitt's biggest plays aren't those touchdowns. I thought that the run from the 1 yard line in the Green Bay game was the biggest play of the game. And he started the season. Remember, first carry Monday night, 60-yard touchdown. Now look where it's gone. Emmitt Smith, if you add up his regular season yards of almost 1,800 and his playoff yards, remember he had 150 last week, he's now over 2,000 in his 18 games for the season. Now, interesting to note that in '92 he had more, but he had one more game, the Super Bowl. He's going to pass everybody but Eric Dickerson for an entire regular and postseason with his performance today. So that puts into context where he is. Well, since he is playing today, I'm not sure if Emmitt, MVP of Super Bowl 28, and Troy Aikman, MVP of Super Bowl 27, will join the other past MVPs for what will be a great coin flip ceremony before today's game at Super Bowl 30. But Emmitt is in rather elite company in Super Bowls, and since this is Super Bowl 30, we'll have plenty of lore ourselves right here on Game Day.
Can you name me the first player to throw over 300 yards in a Super Bowl?
Well, Rock, you're in with the man. Terry Bradshaw took the Super Bowl 13 to the quarterback in a 300-yard game with 318 yards against Dallas. The touchdown to Swan, a very important chunk of that. Maybe the next Steelers Super Bowl quarterback, Neil O'Donnell, will have that same success today. He'll talk with Joe. But he'll have to evade Dallas's tough inside rush, spearheaded by Leon Lett, and the return at defensive end of one Charles Haley. We're just revving up on game day.
Extreme cold. It can change the state of your motor oil, causing it to flow too slowly, keeping it from reaching vital engine parts.
That'll be $6.
Harry.
Yeah?
How come you're charging me for the hot dogs?
The 52-inch Magnabox big screen TV with smart screen and a picture so good you can charge for the hot dogs. Smart. Very smart. See your Magnabox dealer now for a special financing program.
The Super Bowl edition of NFL Game Day is brought to you by Visa. It's everywhere you want to be.
It's kind of how he got to work this morning. Neil O'Donnell, this is how he has worked. You may not know this, but of all the quarterbacks that have thrown at least 1,500 passes in the NFL, Neil O'Donnell, by far and away, the fewest interceptions per pass. 1 every 48 Neil O'Donnell passes is picked off. I mean, that's way better than Joe Montana or anyone else who's ever played. So that puts into perspective what he's done. Joe, to put into perspective what Neil O'Donnell has done this year, he's led 5 fourth-quarter comebacks. Captain comeback this year, Jim Harbaugh had 4. Mr. fourth-quarter comeback, John Elway, only had 3. Neil O'Donnell's been overlooked, and the Cowboys had better not overlook him.
You're absolutely right, Chris. I mean, Neil O'Donnell has certainly endured trials and tribulations this year, missed the first 4 games of the season, and stood there watch his team frustratingly lose many of them. But when he sets foot on the field later today, he knows exactly why he's there.
I'm well aware now I'm playing in the Super Bowl. I think Sunday waiting to go to the stadium and play the games will be a very long day, but I'm excited, I really am. And you have to enjoy the moment because you don't know when you'll ever be back there again.
The beard. Now, you got to tell me honestly, when you looked in the mirror last week before you cleaned it up, what did you think of it?
It was thick. It was. I had some of last week's lunch over here. You know, it was too thick. It needed to be cleaned up. There were guys in the locker room calling me Dan Fouts, Abe Lincoln. You know, there were some you know, people really riding me pretty hard on it.
But Neil O'Donnell, he put that ball right on the money, and the Steelers look like they may extend and come back from the jaws of defeat to the thrill of victory.
Why are you so able to perform so well at the end of games?
We spread it out a lot more than the previous teams the Steelers had. We have 5 receivers out there, 4 receivers. So when there's some time on the clock, let's say the hurry-up offense, I think 2 years ago, 41 seconds before halftime, Carroll would send me out there and say, Neil on the ball, we'll go on out and come back the third quarter. Now when he sees that, he has so much confidence in our hurry-up offense. He says, go out there, Neil, and make things happen.
The Chicago game, would you have to say that was the most pivotal game this year for this ball club?
Yes, it was, because you know, it was one of those, whoever had the ball last was going to win the game, and we had to put up a lot of points. Our defense wasn't slowing their offense down too much, and it just seems like after that game, the offense and the defense just all came together as one. You heard so many times about the great Steelers defenses of the past, and then all of a sudden now, you know, in the past couple months, hey, this offense is exciting to watch.
Did it ever get frustrating? I mean, to finally get to this point, there's satisfaction and gratification, but was there a point a year ago where you finally said, geez, what do I have to do?
I thought after the San Diego game, it was very frustrating because I thought we played an extremely, you know, very good football team, and I thought we played well enough to win, and we just fell 3 yards short. And back in Pittsburgh, no one would ever let me forgive that until I bring him back to another Super Bowl.
Do you think you've got enough credit as a quarterback?
I think recently, yes. It's all been coming around lately, but
in the past?
No, but I was never one to really complain about that. You look at my career, I've been in the Steelers organization now for 6 years. Came in, my second year, I started 9 games. My third year, brought the team to the playoffs. I've been to the playoffs 4 years straight. Played in 2 AFC championship games, playing in my first Super Bowl, hopefully win one. And in 6 years, that's not a bad resume. And, you know, like I said earlier, the bottom line is wins and losses, and Neil O'Donnell did a pretty good job with the wins.
Spending the time that I did with Neil O'Donnell, I couldn't help but be impressed that this guy really has everything in perspective. He understands what his role is. He understands what the role of the Pittsburgh Steelers are in this Super Bowl. He's certainly put together a great resume. And Tommy, when he takes it to the open market and he presents it out there as a free agent, he'd like to have that last paragraph read, winning Super Bowl quarterback.
Yeah, and another thing, I think that he deserves to stay with the Steelers regardless of the outcome of today's game. But his success today is tied directly to the Steeler running game. If the Steelers find themselves in 3rd down and 7, 3rd and 8, Charles Haley, Leon Lett and company will begin to dictate via the pass rush. That's exactly what happened the last time these two teams played. 9 sacks, Sterling, final score 26-9.
Well, you know, the great Steeler receivers, I think Yancey Thigpen, as we'll see, did something against Buffalo on a 3rd and 8 call that really helped get this thing going. And that's a great catch right there. And we're going to use this one play to push us to where we want to be right here. If you put 4 wide receivers on the field, the Dallas Cowboys have to match up. Take those linebackers off the field, put in the smaller defensive backs. In the championship game, when the Green Bay Packers did it, Edgar Bennett averaged a mere 12 yards per carry. So if you want to run the football and run it effectively, get those linebackers off the field.
You know what I think is a key player today, and it's not going to be someone that carries it 15 times for 80 yards. John L. Williams, whether it's a block, he's one of the best receiving backs ever in the NFL, whether it's a run at the right time. I think if he goes, you know the Steelers are going. Keep your eye on him. Well, one Steeler who has worked harder than anyone to get on the field today, Rod Woodson. We'll have more on his amazing comeback later. But Rod is also one of those caught up with 30 years of Super Bowl memories.
Hi, I'm Rod Woodson of the Pittsburgh Steelers. Can you name the only NFL player to win 3 MVPs in a Super Bowl?
Well, Rod, you're asking the wrong guy. I think I can come up with this one. Joe Montana, Super Bowl 16, Super Bowl 19, Super Bowl 24. All right, I got that one. Troy Aikman is hoping to join Bart Starr and Terry Bradshaw with 2 MVP crowns. He was the best in Super Bowl 27. He'll have to evade Kevin Green's stare and hair and avoid what is sure to be a thundering hit by Greg Lloyd if he has the chance. That matchup coming up.
Just announced for 1995, the best-selling luxury import in America was BMW. In celebration, Bill DeFau is offering you the most flexible, never-before-offered programs for you to own or lease a BMW. Your choice of reduced financing of only 2.9% APR.
Let's go inside the Super Bowl numbers. Before it was the Super Bowl and a Roman numeral, it was the AFL-NFL World Championship game. Super Bowl III was the first game referred to as the Super Bowl. Super Bowl V was the first game with a Roman numeral, and the first game in which the trophy was named after Vince Lombardi. Before the TV networks rotated broadcasting privileges, what is now known as Super Bowl I was televised by both CBS and NBC. The cost for a 30-second commercial in those 1967 broadcasts averaged $40,000. In 1985, Super Bowl XIX, that same spot cost $550,000. It was the first $1 million commercial minute in television history. Today, the average cost for a 30-second commercial is $1.2 million. Media coverage has, of course, increased. In Super Bowl I, there were 338 media credentials issued for the game. Today, it's nearly 10 times that. The game is now seen in 187 countries around the world, live in 154 of them. If you're lucky enough to have a ticket to the game, the face value starts at $200, with the highest price at $350. That's more than 4 times the highest price 10 years ago, and almost 30 times the price in Super Bowl I. As for the players themselves, for the first 11 years, each member of the winning team received $15,000. Each loser, $7,500. Last year, the Niners all received $42,000. Each Charger, $26,000. For today's game, the players will have to settle for those same measly wages. More memories. The only losing player to be named MVP happened at Super Bowl V, and there he is, linebacker Chuck Howley of the Dallas Cowboys. They lost to the Colts that day, but Howley also the only linebacker to be named MVP. Speaking of linebackers, Super Bowl 30, Kevin Green wouldn't mind being MVP either, would he?
Kind of makes me feel kind of sexy, you know, kind of that I really good for some reason. It's like, I want to say, do you want me to?
Oh my goodness, it's Cousin It. He'll be facing Troy Aikman, whose record in the postseason rivals that of legends like Bart Starr. We'll be back.
McDonald's presents future Olympic hopefuls. Carlos Tapio.
Good song.
Great song.
You can make mountains ring. Oh, maybe.
I admit it, watching Arkansas play makes me happier than a pig and you know what. Arkansas, will you make the Final Four? In them wacky uniforms with the pigs with horns. And did I hear you say you were playing a game today with the home crowd yelling, woo, pig suey? Hey, those pigs may be hogs, but they're kosher to me, capiche?
How do you feel when you take a quarterback out of the game?
Whoever you have on the other side of the ball that I guess is a key player. That would be like saying to get Emmitt Smith, to get Troy Aikman out of the ball game, it's definitely going to help the Pittsburgh Steelers. Not that you go out there with that intention to hurt, but to get him out of the ball game.
Well, Greg certainly knows the names, and despite all of the big names on the Cowboys, and there are many stars, Troy Aikman is the meal ticket. Emmitt's the most valuable Cowboy. Michael Irvin and Dion more flashy and electric, but Troy Aikman, well, he just wins. 9-1 in the postseason. Now, let me say that again. 9-1 in postseason starts. The same record as Bart Starr. Let's go back to the stadium with Chris Mortensen. Mort, the thing that's amazing about Troy is he's just 29 years old. I mean, he's way too young to have such ice water in his veins, if you pardon the pun there.
No question, Chris. And, Troy has told me many times he'd love to be the first quarterback to win 5 Super Bowls, although he is content with 2. And, a coach on the team told me this was a seriously focused team in practice and meetings this week. And he said that nobody was more sensational this week than Troy Aikman. And there's good reason. It's playoff time.
I've had a number of people ask me if, when I'm done playing, if I'd like to be regarded as the top quarterback to have ever played. It's not important to me. The only thing that is important to me is that if someone would like to make that argument, that I give them something substantial to where they could at least make a pretty good case.
Troy Aikman's numbers are already more than substantial enough to make that case. In 10 playoff starts, he has only 1 loss, while his quarterback rating in the postseason is second only to Hall of Famer Bart Starr.
I don't think it's fair to compare anyone necessarily statistically because the game goes far beyond that. And I'm not even sure I'm close to being in a league with a guy like this.
Aikman's success has come in part thanks to advice from another Hall of Fame quarterback. Before the playoffs in 1992, he sought out Roger Staubach, a veteran of 4 Super Bowls with the Cowboys.
Really, it was more of, I remember the shoes that he's in that I was in before. There are some things I think that I look back that wish I would have done a little differently. I talked to him about, and also some of the things that I learned from the challenge of a playoff and a Super Bowl.
And the thing that he said to me at that time, which really sticks out in my mind, is don't worry about the physical things. That will take care of itself once you get on the field, but be as mentally prepared as you can possibly be going into the game.
Players are nervous. They can say all they want to say and act like they're not nervous, but they are. And sometimes the tenseness doesn't allow you to do some things. And so in a game, I think you have to be mentally ready to play a playoff game more than any other game.
I think the thing that they usually try to do, and that I remember trying to do, is that you try to find a way to get yourself into a rhythm of the ball game.
The important thing is to be able to block out everything that's happening around you and just get as focused as you can as to the job at hand.
What's around Aikman now is an opportunity to become only the 3rd quarterback ever to win 3 Super Bowls. And at age 29, his place in playoff history is still yet to be played out.
If he keeps at the level and stays healthy and keeps playing the way he's playing with his ability, he's gonna be the quarterback at the top of the heap.
I know that if I don't go out and play well in the Super Bowl, then my name will be 5th on the list, and then, so.
All right, Mortimer, thank you. Here it is. B. Starr T. Aikman. 9-1, and the quarterback ratings, no matter how you slice it, I mean, they even stand ahead of Jay Montana and Jay Theismann. Not bad, Joe. You're right there, but I don't think you're going to catch Bart at this point.
No.
But look at what, I mean, you look at those numbers and success. I mean, he wins. He understands it, as Mort said.
He really does. And the thing that impresses me so much about Troy Aikman is he is the leader of a football team made up of stars. And I think that's very difficult, to try and fit yourself in and not have your ego get in the way, because you are really the man. Troy Aikman, in my opinion, is appreciated and respected by his teammates. Respect being the most important thing a quarterback can have. He's also the most prototypical quarterback in football today. If you wanted to go out and teach somebody how to throw the football with great balance, great velocity, great accuracy, you take a picture of Troy Aikman, you look at it on film, Tommy, you say, go young man, study this. You will be like that someday.
Yeah, and Joey also has an intangible that you had as a part of your game, and that is toughness, both mental and physical. Today, we know that he's going to get hit a couple of times by the Pittsburgh blitz. He's going to have to get up off the ground, stand in, take his shots, and deliver the football downfield.
And we all admire Troy Aikman's toughness. I also admire the coaching job he's done this year on the field and bringing a young Kevin Williams back to respectability and getting some of that pressure off of Michael Irvin. I think what he has done to this team is, like Joe said, you talk about respect. When that guy goes in the huddle, he's all business, and I'd love to see Troy Aikman smile a little bit more today.
Well, he might smile, but you know what? If you're going to pick a quarterback, Sterling, to win one game this year, out of the players playing now, you might pick Marino, you might pick Elway, you might pick Steve Young. This year, you might pick Brett Favre. The point is, Troy might be the fifth guy until you look at that 9-1. Then I don't think Bart Starr was named number one that you would have necessarily picked in the 60s, and all he did was win, and you cannot underscore that, that's for sure. Well, every year at the Super Bowl, there is a star or two that emerges among the media. This week, we can't say we were surprised. Nate Newton of the Cowboys and Kevin Green of the Steelers. Suffice it to say that as he held court all week, the Steelers' Rapunzel, or as Jay Giles used to sing, Reputa de Buta, more than let his hair down when he visited with our Roy Firestone.
It goes back years. I mean, she came up with this saying, and I don't know if it's ever been, you know, been published or said before now, but she says,
Rack 'em, sack 'em, crack 'em, frack 'em.
Rack 'em, sack 'em, crack 'em, frack 'em. I'm not sure what frack 'em means, but it seems to fit.
Rock and roll.
Who's your favorite Pittsburgh Steeler player?
Kevin Green.
Kevin Green, why is that?
Because he looks like me.
I love the Goldilocks look. I remember as a kid, the little fairy tale story, Rapunzel. Rapunzel, let down your long hair. You know what I mean? Take that helmet off and let down that long hair.
She asks me why I'm just a hairy guy. I'm hairy noon and night, hair that's a fright.
He loves to throw the Samson issue out. I said, well, if you're Samson, I have to be Delilah.
She's waking up in the middle of the night, trying to sneak over next to me, grab a lock, and try to snip off a couple of strands, you know.
I'm hairy high and low. Don't ask me why, don't know.
I'm doing it, I think, as a dig at my wife more than anything. My wife hates it.
You know, I told him, I said, if I didn't really love you, I probably would have divorced you a long time ago with that hair.
Gimme a head with hair, long, beautiful hair, shining, gleaming, steaming, flaxen, waxen.
Can you tell me the last time you cut your hair?
Absolutely. The wife wanted it cut. It was the night before I got married to her.
On June the 12th, 1993. And scissors have not touched it in any form or fashion, as you can tell, since then.
Maybe we can do a throwback thing for you. We can go back and see what you might look in different hairstyles. Would you be game to that?
Let's do it. It kind of makes me feel kind of sexy, you know, in front of that eye a little bit for some reason. It's like I want to say, do you want me, big fella? Sure, man. Sit yourself down, man, and let's have a smoke. Oh, this is, I hope I'm never look like this. Yes, I can balance the budget in 15 years, I promise.
Give me down to there, hair, shoulder length longer. Here, baby, there, mama, everywhere, daddy, daddy, hey.
I think that he could be a
clone, and I'm not talking about smelling mass, of Hulk Hogan. Have you ever heard of Hulk Hogan? Brother, I like his hairstyle.
Hulkster, you're often confused with.
Right.
The Hulkster's got the same kind of hair.
I hope I have a better hairline than the Hulkster. I mean, he's like starts way back here and then it's real long. You got to polish that thing for the Hulkster.
After the Super Bowl's all over with, I'm gonna flash him, brother. I'm gonna snap his arm in half, even though Kevin Green's a good dude, brother. And then I'm gonna shave the middle of his head just so he'll look like Hulk Hogan.
Maybe a tag team.
Hey, why not? You know, I can come off the top turnbuckle and lay someone out.
And here comes Kevin Green! Out goes Pillman!
Thank God there's an outlet for somebody like you.
Yeah, I don't know what I'm going to do after football's over. I'm going to hide in the park someday, I don't know, and sneak up on somebody when he's drinking water out of the fountain, hit him in the back and go, clip 15 yards, and just start walking off in any direction. It's going to be crazy. I don't know what I'm going to do.
The Cowsill, somehow they don't kind of stack up with Kevin. I kind of like that Engelbert Humperdinck look. Or whatever.
That was the
He's
look.
been a treat this week. Obviously, now everybody has seen Sterling.
And the one thing is not getting your hair cut, that's a good thing. But having to face Eric Williams this week, that's not a good thing. And the one thing that the Dallas Cowboys are going to do is they're not going to line Jay Novacek in front of him the whole game. They're going to motion Jay Novacek over there to make him stutter step. And after he stutter steps, he's going to have to go up and face the big guy, Tommy.
And Sterling, that same rule could apply right down the offensive line and the defensive line for the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Dallas Cowboys. Here you can see a little bit bigger Nate Newton and Eric Williams, but you can't stand in front of these guys. You have to take these guys, make them go outside, bring the backers inside, maybe bring them over 2 spots inside. Slant here, stunt here, slant here. They've got to get a lot of movement. If you stand in front of the Dallas Cowboy offensive line, Joe, eventually you're going to get pushed off the football.
Well, Tommy, I think the most important thing here to understand is that Kevin Green is just a part of a tandem of great linebackers, Greg Lloyd being the other one. When you think of great linebacking tandems, you think of Carl Banks and Lawrence Taylor. They both could bring heat from the outside on a quarterback. And then in New Orleans, when you had Pat Swilling and Ricky Jackson together, they both complemented one another. And that's the thing I think you see with Kevin Green and Greg Lloyd. They're great complements to one another, Chris. I mean, that's the way it works.
But there's a possibility they may not complement. Well, personally, they might complement each other next year, but from another team, because Kevin, 11 seasons in the NFL, free agent. He says he may not be back at Pittsburgh. Should he stay or should he go?
He's got to stay. I think there's a couple of reasons why. Kevin Green, for example, was a defensive end with the Los Angeles Rams. Didn't really play very well, wasn't really that much of a factor. Then you turn around and you move him to an outside linebacker position and a natural 3-4 rusher, and he does very well. There are only 3 other teams besides Pittsburgh in the National Football League that actually play the true 3-4. It would be best for the Steelers and Kevin Green, and even if it meant a little less money for him to stay in Pittsburgh.
Well, so now let's see. You've kept O'Donnell.
Yep.
You've kept Kevin Green.
I'm over.
You signing these checks?
I'm over to Cap now. I mean, what can I tell you?
Well, we got our capologist all over it. Well, it's hard to imagine the Steelers without either of these guys. Well, more Super Bowl testers at this point as we roll on here on NFL Game Day. The first defensive player to score a touchdown in the big game. Well, primetime can only hope he can duplicate Herb Adderley's 60-yard interception, Super Bowl II against the Oakland Raiders. Willie Wood had a 50-yarder, but not for a touchdown in Super Bowl I, so Adderley is the answer. Will today be Dion's stage, or will it be the Cordell Stewart's game / coming out party / stick around? We'll slash it around. We're only getting revved up. Rod Woodson has done what nobody has done. Serious knee surgery week 1. Nobody thought except Rod it'd be convenient for him to return this year. Speaking of playing hurt, do opponents target those who are hurt?
When players see that his report is okay, yeah, he's weak. We're going to hit him in his weak spot.
Charles was hurt, but Charles is back in charge. He starts. 2 players who had their Super Bowl moments have gone from the top to the bottom. Joe Gilliam of the Steelers, Golden Richards of the hair and catch fame of the Dallas Cowboys also went down and out. They have sobering stories of drug abuse.
You know, it says take 1 pill every 4 hours as needed for pain. Well, I take 4 every hour as needed for a high. It made me sick initially. I did it every day.
The three worst initials in football, ACL. Rod Woodson tore his in the first quarter of week 1, but here we are, the Super Bowl, and he's going to play. An amazing saga. Back to Sun Devil Stadium and Andrea Kramer. Andrea?
Thanks, Chris. Rod Woodson has been planning hard and cutting on a surgically repaired knee. Now he just needs to get out there and hit someone. But will he give the Steelers just a psychological lift, or can he be a productive force? He expects Dallas to test him early, and in essence, Bill Cowher will do the same.
He's going to play on third down, going in, and I think what we'll see is how the game unfolds, what actually takes place, and just say I'll keep my open mind as he's asked me to do, and let's just, I'm going to have to make decisions based on how the game's going, but initially going in, he'll be a third down player.
12 to 15 plays, but you're flexible?
I'm flexible, as I've always been.
I think if I do have an advantage, I have fresh legs compared to everybody else that's been out there the whole year. So even though I'm 85% or something of that nature, I haven't done anything. And those guys have been working too hard, so their legs are heavy.
Defensive coordinator Dick LeBeau told me on third downs, Woodson will go in at right corner with Carnell Lake moving inside. In the base defense, he could play at either corner position. LeBeau said he would not hesitate to rush Woodson, that it might even be easier for him than being in coverage. But Tommy, the Steelers would prefer to let Woodson concentrate on one thing, playing corner.
Well, I think you're exactly right, Andrea, and I think that Coach Cowher has to be very careful with his use of Rod Woodson for a couple of reasons. One, he hasn't been a member of this unit as they have meshed during the second half of the season. Number two, they're playing in a new system with Dick LeBeau as their defensive coordinator. And I'll draw you a hypothetical scenario. What happens to the psyche of this ball club if Rod Woodson gets beat deep early on, Joe?
Well, they're going to see an official go, touchdown, and the Cowboys are going to be ahead by 7 more points. I mean, that's just the way the game will go. In the beginning of the week, I thought that Rod Woodson saying that he was going to play was a disruptive force to the defensive secondary and the defense in general. I have changed my mind. After talking to Dermontti Dawson, the center of the Steelers, earlier this week, he told me that Rod was running without a limp. He was not using a brace, just a sleeve to keep it warm. And I think the most important thing psychologically, Sterling, for the Steelers is that this game is played on grass. Therefore, Rod Woodson will not have in his mind the psychological problems he might have playing on a artificial surface.
I agree with the last half, Joe, but you talked to Dermontti Dawson, who was the center. Very good. Darren Perry, who's the free safety, didn't seem so sure. Willie Williams, who is the starting left corner, didn't seem so sure. So the guys who play on the same side of the ball as Rod Woodson use words like continuity, togetherness. We've been here all year. We finally know each other. Not saying Dermontti Dawson doesn't know football. He just doesn't know the defensive secondary side of football.
Well, I think everyone on the sidelines, Dallas' sideline, Troy won't be able to necessarily see it, but he's going to get the report from the press box. Does he cut? Can he move? And I got to think that the Cowboys are going to find that out immediately as soon as Woodson gets in. Let's go back out to the stadium where our Mark Malone, who once starred at the Sun Devil Stadium for Arizona State. And Mark is there. If you were Aikman, wouldn't that be the first thing that you would want to know also, how he cuts on the field?
Oh, there's no doubt about it, Boomer. Aikman and the Dallas Cowboys will test Rod Woodson's mobility early in this football game, and I guarantee you they will physically go after his knee with legal cut blocks if given the chance. The exploitation of an opponent's injury is a long-standing tactic that some players have called the NFL's dirty little secret.
If I see an offensive lineman's arm wrap, I'm going to go after that arm. I'm going to keep hitting it, clubbing it, smacking it, until it hurts him so well where he has to go out the game.
Targeting an opponent's injury. One former player said that wearing a brace is like wearing a target. In the fierce battles on the field, some players will take any advantage they can get.
If I know your shoulder's hurting, the left one, I'll make sure I get an extra lick on that left shoulder.
If you got a sore hand, a sore pec, your back a little ache, and I'm going to try to put this 330 pounds on you.
I think guys know when you're hurt, they know where you're hurt. Some guys will go after just to get you out the game.
If your opponent knows that you have a problem, and he's that type of player, he's going to zero in on it.
If they target it, they target it. They're going to, that's why they have injury reports.
The injury report, issued by the league and made public, its official purpose to prevent gamblers from harassing teams, players, and coaches for information that may be helpful in placing bets on games. Its unofficial use, players keeping track of other opponents' injuries.
From Wednesday when you walk in there and you get your game book till Saturday or Sunday morning, you know if they're getting better or getting worse.
When players see that injury report, it's okay, yeah, he's weak. We're going to hit him in this weak spot. Ain't nothing you can do about it.
One thing a player can do is stay off the injury report by hiding their injuries.
There are many times a player will come in and get treatment. Please don't put me on the injury report. Don't let anybody know that I'm hurt.
The Lions' Chris Spielman tore his pectoral muscle in the first game of the season, but managed to keep it off the injury report for 8 weeks. How serious is the league about the report? The Cowboys were fined $10,000 last season for not disclosing Troy Aikman's sprained thumb. Although they say their intent was not to hide the injury, sometimes a team will help a player hide his injury and keep it off the report.
Yes, I've got to admit that there's some fudging going on because there's certain things at certain positions you don't want to really report.
Another way to hide an injury is to disguise it. 3 years ago, Ken Norton played half the season trying to hide his torn right bicep from opponents.
I tried to pretty much play in a situation where they couldn't tell which side it was going on, but I did have that idea, and I tried to cover it up as well as I could with my uniform, so they couldn't really tell which side was hurt.
If I got a cracked hand or thumb or something, I put less tape as possible. I don't want them to know that because they can use a chop technique, man, and boom, hit you on it, and you be like, ah.
But players accept that in the brutal, win-it-all-cost game of professional football, any weakness, including injury, will be exploited.
I don't think it's trying to, to maim the guy. I think it's just a thing, hey, if we can get Troy Aikman out of there, it makes it easier for us.
I don't think that any of us mind, Emmitt Smith pulling a hamstring or Reggie White, hurting his knee, because that gives you a better opportunity to win.
And it really shouldn't be a surprise that the two players that were mentioned at the end of that piece were Troy Aikman and Emmitt Smith. Key players become key targets. And not only will Dallas work on Rod Woodson, but Tommy, I guarantee you, Pittsburgh will be working on the back of Charles Haley today.
And Mark, it's so nice to see that some things in the game haven't changed from the 70s and 80s. I don't think any players go out to maim a guy or permanently end his career, but I think that if you choose to step on the field, you have an injury, it's my obligation to take advantage of that.
Well, it's nice of you to tell me that now that I'm out of the game. Appreciate it. I just don't necessarily agree with everything we hear, and times have changed a little bit. Sterling is constantly referred to me as one of the old-timers. Well, back in the old days when somebody was hurt, I think that guys would really go after one another because you wouldn't see them again until the next season. But because of the socialization now of the players, they get out together, they play in golf tournaments. I mean, you're not going to hurt somebody, Sterling, and say, hey, look, oh, by the way, would you come play in my charity golf tournament? Because the club may wind up someplace else and hitting a golf ball. That would be a concern.
You're exactly right. Let me say Tommy is an old guy, too. I played hurt for the last 2 or 3 years of my 7th-year career, and the one thing that I noticed is a lot of players who knew I was hurt would come up and say that they'll try and take care of me as best they could. And I was so-called the guy in Green Bay that I caught most of the passes, so it would have benefited them to get me out of the game because that would have increased their chances of winning. Little did they know that now that I'm sitting here that the team would be a lot better without me anyway.
Well, you know what, though? To show the times have changed, you have been a pain in the neck. Have we taken any shots at that neck?
Not on camera.
Yeah,
not on camera.
Well, that's right. Well, I'll tell you, I don't know how to take a shot at the neck. And how would you take a shot at the back? Well, that's a question today as we roll on here on Game Day. Here, Mark Malone mentioned they'll look at Haley's back, but how do you work on it? Well, Charles has 2 Super Bowl rings as a Niner, 2 as a Cowboy. He visits with Leslie Visser when we come back. He could make Super Bowl history. First game ever for Barry Switzer. Charles Haley impressed him by sacking Steeler quarterbacks Neil O'Donnell and company 4 times. In that game in September of '94, Haley had the 4 sacks, 15 pressures. He was enormous, and Barry loves that he has been back. Well, we know that he has been a Pro Bowler. We know he's coming back to start from, no pun intended, a back injury that has shelved him for over a month. But you may not know that of the 1,560 players who have stepped foot on the Super Bowl playing fields, only 29 have 4 championship rings. Today, one of them, Charles Haley, can be a comet unto himself. His own one for the thumb. Let's head out to Leslie Visser, who is at NFL headquarters guarding the Vince Lombardi Trophy.
Thanks, Chris. This will look good in my living room. Well, only 2 active players have 4 Super Bowl rings, Charles Haley and his old teammate from the 49ers, Jesse Sapulu. Charles plans on winning that historic 5th ring, and when he does, he's going to show his good friend Ronnie Lott, another man who has 4 Super Bowl rings, exactly how it feels.
The biggest thing will be, I'll be the first player to get 5, but, I call Ronnie up. He's in town and he has 4, and I call him up, tell him if I get 5, I'm gonna come over and pop him upside the head with 5 rings so he can have 5 knots on his head to remember me by.
How difficult is it to win 5 Super Bowl rings? I mean, hundreds of players, thousands of players pass through the NFL.
You look at Eric Dickerson, he played all his career. He's never won a Super Bowl ring. So it's a lot of great players that go through the league.
John Elway, Marino.
All of these guys.
Kelly.
And they'll get out right on just to have 1. And I've been fortunate enough to get 4 and the opportunity to get 5. And I just think that God has blessed me, and I think I got to take advantage of that blessing.
You've won these Super Bowl rings with 3 different coaches. Can you talk about how each one was different?
Bill Walsh is what you call a class act all the way. He did a lot for players. He set up programs for players, and he helped them all the way through. Some guys, had trouble and sold Super Bowl rings. Bill would get it, buy it back for them, and give it back to the players and stuff. He just did a lot of great things for players. George Seifert, to me, he was a great defensive coordinator, but he never impressed me as a head coach. He don't know how to really get his point across. Instead of him being himself, he wants to be somebody else. Jimmy Johnson, he was more of a workaholic, authoritarian person that always wanted to be in control of everything, every aspect of every person's life. And Barry Switzer, he's the 4th one, and Barry's he's a real gentleman. To me, he's a leader because he lets you use your ability, and he don't try to restrict you. He don't try to set boundaries for you. He give you all the rope you want. When you hang yourself, he'll pull you on back, push your neck back down, and give you the rope again, let you go for it.
Is this true that this is the first time your dad might see you play?
First time in person to be at the game. This will be the first time, and that's really special to me right there because he's scared of flying and everything. And I don't know who talked him into it. I guess my mom and brothers talked him into it because they know that I'm at the end.
Despite reports, Charles told me he plans on playing 40 plays against Pittsburgh, a Herculean assignment for a guy who hasn't seen action since December 3rd. He also plans to start, and stop me if you've heard this before, he said that if he wins, it's likely he'd retire. Chris?
All right, Leslie, thank you. The only fellas that have 5 Super Bowl rings are 4 Niner coaches, assistants or now head coach George Seifert. Bob McKittrick, the offensive line coach, our man Mac. Bill McPherson, Ray Rhodes, now coach of the Eagles, and George Seifert. Now, Hulk, of course, if the Steelers win today, could win his 5th ring, and that's, of course, what Charles is trying to do, though, the only player. What do you think you'll see from Charles today on the field, Joe? I mean, the back has been a question.
Well, the back, I don't necessarily think is going to be a problem at all, Chris. I think that one of the key matchups in this football game this afternoon is going to be John Jackson, the left tackle of the Pittsburgh Steelers, against Charles Haley. It's very important that Jackson gets a good start against Haley. If Charles has his way early, he's going to gain momentum, he's going to gain confidence, and it's going to be a long afternoon for Neil O'Donnell. The other thing is Charles Haley, because of the long layoff, Tommy, may not be able to be that much of a force in the late 3rd quarter or 4th quarter. So if he's going to go, he's going to have to go early.
Well, I think the key for the entire Steeler offensive line is for someone to block Leon Lett so that they have the ability to run the football. When you see Charles Haley and Tony Tolbert and Russell Maryland, they look a lot more like linebackers than they do defensive linemen, except for Leon Lett. Case in point, Chris, when Leon Lett wasn't in that lineup or when he was lined up outside, everybody ran the ball on the Dallas Cowboys.
Are you auditioning to be a member of the Corleone family or something? I mean, listen to you.
Yes.
Listen to you out
You
here.
owe me a favor.
Just stay out of the toll booths, will you? Sorry, I had to do it. Charles is one of the many reasons, of course, why the NFC has won 11 straight Super Bowls. Average score over these 11 years, in case you're wondering, 39-16. 23-point margin per game, exactly what it was last year when the Niners beat the Chargers 49-26. Of the 11 Super Bowls, only 2 of them have been close. Super Bowl 25, Giants over the Bills. Super Bowl 23, San Francisco over Cincy. Will this be the game they'll remember as the one in which the AFC finally has, as Rod Stewart sang here in Phoenix last night, reason to believe? Back to our quizzes. The 2 touchdown throws in Super Bowl history by non-quarterbacks. Lawrence McCutcheon of the Rams to Ron Smith against Pittsburgh in Super Bowl 14. And Robert Newhouse for the Cowboys to Golden Richards in Super Bowl 12 against Denver. Tom, it was a touchdown. Now, Golden Richards has had moments since then that are far from golden, however. And as a former Steeler, he was once known as Jefferson Street Joe Gillum. From the arena to the street. The sobering stories coming up. And the athletes today, Deion Sanders, he can do it all. So can Cordell Stewart. How often will they see each other face to face this afternoon? The Eagles had a poignant song entitled After the Thrill Is Gone. Could that ever apply to Dallas wide receiver Golden Richards and Pittsburgh quarterback Joe Gillum? Both experienced the exhilaration of playing at the top level in the NFL in its showcase game, the Super Bowl. They also have experienced what happens when your life can't keep pace when football ends. Each player had 2 Super Bowl rings, yet at one time they both panned their most special football memories in search of salvation. Craig Garber has their stories.
His day begins in darkness. Golden Richards, former Dallas Cowboys wide receiver, works on a construction site outside Salt Lake City. Joe Gillum, former Pittsburgh Steelers quarterback, has no job and no home. He walks the streets of Nashville. Both men are drug addicts.
It's, I guess that's like the devil. You see this, he paints you this picture, you know what I mean? But it's, and it's glitter and it's shiny and it's wow, but in reality it is woo.
It can be a Tuesday and partly cloudy. That's a reason to use. Or it could be Tuesday and sunshine, and that's a reason to use. There's no rhyme or reason to it.
Richards is recovering. Gillum is still using. Otherwise, their lives are a sobering study in symmetry. Both are 45. Both were charismatic NFL players in the 1970s. Both have survived overdoses, contemplated suicide, endured 3 broken marriages, done time in jail. Exactly 20 years ago in Miami, Richards and Gillum were on opposite sidelines for Super Bowl 10.
What do you remember about Super Bowl 10? Now, by that time...
Not a lot.
Really?
Not a lot at all. We beat them 21-17. I know that.
Richards was forced out of that game early when a hit by Mel Blount broke 5 of his ribs. Richards says team doctors gave him a powerful painkiller, Demerol. He says it was his introduction to addiction.
They said, here, this will stop the pain. It did that, and also I, was asking for clearance from Miami International. I mean, it flew me right out of there.
3 years earlier, in 1973, the Dallas Cowboys had drafted a 160-pound receiver who was said to be faster than light. His name, John Golden Richards.
Very fast, white, blonde hair, gifted verbally. He fit the mold for America's team.
He was perfect. The name, the golden hair, he was perfect for Dallas.
The season after Super Bowl 10, 1976, Richards injured his knee. This time he turned to Percodan. This time he didn't stop.
It says take 1 pill every 4 hours as needed for pain. Well, I take 4 every hour as needed for a high.
And where does this stuff come from? It doesn't grow on trees.
In my particular case, there was a pharmacist in Dallas, and it was carte blanche for 2 tickets to every home Cowboy game.
Richards caught a touchdown pass to finish off the Broncos in Super Bowl 12. In the spring of 1978, he overdosed on a combination of Demerol and Percodan. A few months later, he was traded to the Bears. 2 years later, he was out of the league.
I take the responsibility for propagating it beyond, a reasonable medically needed thing.
Once you get on drugs, you have no chance, to make it. And that's what he was faced with.
I might got an introduction to drugs in the NFL. I'd have got to where I got eventually somehow.
They called him Jefferson Street Joe Gillum, Nashville's version of Broadway Joe Namath.
There was nobody, and I played against a lot of great quarterbacks. There was nobody who had the quick release like Joe Gilliam.
The Steelers drafted him in 1972. 2 years later, when he beat out Terry Bradshaw, he became the first black quarterback to open the season as a starter. When Gilliam was hurt against the Raiders in Week 3, a friend gave him some white powder to dull the ache.
Shoulder, cracked ribs, knee. After we played Oakland there, I couldn't walk the next day. You know, I guess being fearful. Well, if I can't practice, I know I got to get the job back to Bradshaw. That was the beginning.
What was the white powder?
Heroin. It did the job. It took the pain away. It made me sick initially. And after, I did it every day.
Gilliam says he was using heroin for his last 3 starts, all wins, before Coach Chuck Noll benched him in favor of Bradshaw.
He had the potential to be an outstanding quarterback. If there's anything that Joe lacked, it was self-discipline.
I think about what Chuck Noll said to me one day. He said, Joey, you like to have fun. He said, you're going to fun your way right out of this league. And he was right.
Gilliam says he was still using heroin for Super Bowl X, his last game in a Pittsburgh uniform. In 1977, after a failed comeback with the Saints, he was only 26 and out of the NFL for good.
I created that monster. I am responsible for my actions. I didn't do a good job of handling my feelings, and I dug a hole for myself.
For Golden Richards, the bottom of the hole came 3 years ago. In December 1992, he was arrested for forging his father's name on 16 checks. He used them for prescription painkillers.
Most humiliating, degrading, horrifying, and yet educational experience I've had.
Richards, jobless and homeless, devised various suicide attempts that would hide his drug use.
I wanted 2 days of, as I said, 2 days of sobriety, so I'd be clear of my system, and fake make it look like a car accident up in the mountains late at night. And, but I couldn't get the 2 days.
How close did you really come?
Too close. Well, too close. There was another time I was going to make it look like a hunting accident.
Like Richards, Gilliam considered suicide. By the time he was 30, he had served time for cocaine possession, been indicted for heroin possession, and charged with armed robbery. Over the years, Nashville's Shelby Street Bridge has offered an inviting option.
There's a pipe out there you could stand on.
And you're standing on that pipe with your hands on this railing?
Yeah.
Thinking what?
Thinking it was the easy way out.
And your life was, you were in that much pain?
Pain, I guess despair, hopelessness.
Golden Richards, now a construction foreman, says he's been clean for more than 6 months. He is reconciled with his third wife, Amy, and reunited with his first child, Jay Golden Richards.
I wouldn't change a thing about, where I've been and what I've done. I wouldn't, because where I've been in the past has gotten me where I am today.
Today, Joe Gilliam works the streets, bumming money to support his crack habit.
I see a light at the end of a tunnel. I think I'm going to be all right. I think it'll be all right. Like my mother tells me, tough times, Joey, it'll be all right. And I believe that.
We'll be back. Stay with us, please.
Get out of the car!
Crime.
Do you ever think about those kids?
Punishment.
I ain't gonna get no chair, Daddy.
Revenge.
You're gonna fry, and I'm gonna watch you sizzle.
Mercy.
You're making it so difficult to help you. You leave.
Redemption.
What is a nun doing in a place like this?
You know what you're getting into, sister.
Susan Sarandon. Sean Penn.
Dead man walking.
Dead Man Walking. Rated R. Now playing at select theaters.
Deion Sanders intercepts.
Oh, I'm terribly sorry. Are you trying to catch this?
What's with this sweet new Deion?
Hey, have you lost weight?
It could only be this sweet new cereal. New Honey Frosted Wheaties. The sweet new frosted flake that's kicked with Wheaties energy for a primetime taste. So what's got Dion acting so sweet?
While I'm up, can I get anyone a beverage?
New Honey Frosted Wheaties. It's sweet energy.
What does it feel like in the new club world, tilting cradle seat?
Stadium, one that Cordell Stewart won't mind because the last time he was there, Fiesta Bowl a year ago, he was MVP for Colorado over Notre Dame. Dallas doesn't mind it either. They've won 5 straight here, including Christmas night, when they started on their current roll. That was the night that they doused the Arizona Cardinals 37-13. And a former Cardinal, now a Pro Bowl fixture with the Cowboys, Jay Novacek, he likes coming back. 6 years with the Cowboys. Of his 339 catches, Joe, 94 of them came on 3rd and 4th down, resulting in first downs. I mean, so you talk about a guy unsung that keeps drive alive. Jay Novacek today, we'll keep our eye on.
And what you're seeing is a guy who understands his role, Chris. Jay Novacek fits into Ernie Zampese's offense this way. If you take each of the 3 plays as a set, what'll happen is somewhere within that set of 3 plays, Ernie Zampese wants to try and get a big play. He'll have a deep post built in, maybe a deep out. But if he doesn't get it and he comes up 2nd down and 10, look for Jay Novacek on maybe a 5, 6, or 7-yard pattern, just so that he can get in that convertible 3rd down yardage. Jay Novacek is the man that provides Michael Irvin the opportunity for the big play and allows Emmitt Smith the ability to gain all the yards he does. He really is the man that sets the table for the Cowboys.
And he provides, Joe, the rhythm of the offense. And Sterling, you and I know that with Mike Holmgren last week, or in the title game, was trying to do anything to keep Novacek from getting off the line. Not so much to prevent him from catching the ball, but prevent them from getting in the rhythm. Novacek's tough enough that it didn't happen. Now, getting into rhythm, Dion, Cordell Stewart, I don't think they're going to have any problems.
They won't have any problems getting in the rhythm. I mean, Deion Sanders and Cordell Stewart have been the most versatile athletes in the NFL in quite some time. They've been the most talked about here this week in the Super Bowl that we've beaten that to death. And I think a more important question is, who has the better nickname?
Here's the snap. Cordell is rolling right. Looking, pumping.
I don't know if I'm just used to prime time, but Slash is something new, it's fresh.
Prime time got $35 million. I don't know which one you think.
There's a reverse to Deion Sanders. Cuts up field at the 25. Now reverses direction.
He can go in and store and buy a Rolex, and I look at the Rolex and choke because of the price.
Now he wants to throw it back, and he ducks out of there, and he's going to reverse field. He gets a block. He's running at the 10. Now he's going to throw it on the run into the end zone. Touchdown, Keeler!
Well, prime time sounds good, but Slash has worked for us.
Finds a blocker at the 20, to the right, to the 10, to the 5. Touchdown, Deion Sanders.
Slash is fine, but obviously ESPN has chewed up this primetime thing.
And then you know what time it is? It's prime time, prime time, prime time.
It kind of hypes me up to sit up here and think that I'm being compared to Deion Sanders, because, I mean, that's prime time.
He adds a lot of flavor to the game, which the game really needs.
He obviously plays baseball, and I don't.
Anybody can catch a football. I mean, he runs with it real well after he catches it. He runs strong. And he runs like he's got somewhere to go.
I'd say he's a modern-day Jim Thorpe.
You don't know if he's going to punt the ball. You don't know if he's going to throw the ball. You don't know if he's going to option.
Next thing he'll be doing is taking over for Damani and hiking the ball.
You name it, he can do it.
Can he sing? No. I'm going to do whatever Cordell does.
He can do more than Deion, too. Deion can't punt the football.
And he's going to pooch it. And he does. He does it all.
If he punted, I wants to punt.
Cordell can throw the football. We haven't seen Deion throw the football yet.
Any chance he's throwing the ball, Deion? I damn sure hope so.
Now, Deion, don't get too excited.
I don't know if they're allowed flashback in the day, but I've been high-stepping since 74.
Deion Sanders, the dancing man in the end zone, the man who can talk it and walk it at the same time.
Crazy. I hope I don't get caught up in watching it, and hopefully I can stop it.
Stewart looking for the block, turns it at the 20, the 15, the 10, one man to beat, and he's into the end zone for the Steelers touchdown. And Cordell Stewart is just something else.
Before all that happened, the level of intensity just steps up 2,000 notches, knowing that this man is standing in front of me. I'm like, prime time is in front of me.
I told him, do not let Cordell Stewart outshine me. Well, like Cornell Lake said, the guys here gave primetime more hype, so I'm going to change Cordell Stewart's name from Slash To sometime. Sometimes he's a quarterback, sometimes he's a receiver, sometimes, Tommy, he might even punt the ball. I'm doing nicknames.
Yeah, you don't know what they're going to do today, but you talk to both of these coaching staffs, they say the same thing. You can't overcompensate for either Cordell Stewart or Deion Sanders when he's on offense. Give you an example. If you've got Deion Sanders at wide receiver, you can't afford to have a safety jump up on him and leave someone else open for the big play. So I think it's very important, yes, be aware of where they are, but you can't be overly aware.
But time out here, time out, guys. Jerry Jones spent $35 million really for Deion to play cornerback, where he's arguably one of the best ever. Mike Holmgren, Joe, stayed away from Deion's third or fourth of the field, yet the Packers still scored 27 points. But in talking with Ron Earhart of the Steelers, he said, hey, we used the whole field all year. We're going to use the whole field today. Do you think that's a mistake, or do you believe him?
No, I don't think it's a mistake. I think it's the way that the Pittsburgh Steelers have to go. You cannot be afraid of Deion. You must cover the whole field. You have to do what got you here. I would be a little cautious, though. I'm not saying throw caution to the wind here. I think what you have to do with Deion is throw short underneath him, and if you're going to throw in balls, you're fine. You just don't want to hang one out outside wide, because if you do, I don't think Neil O'Donnell's going to catch him. I got to be honest with you.
No, probably not. And they don't, you know, even down 10 late, the Packers didn't panic and throw out the Deion there. If Pittsburgh gets in that predicament, beware. But they're not planning to be in that predicament.
Respect them. Don't be afraid of them.
There you go. Well, we will be back with much more of what's been a beautiful week here in Arizona. The folks have put on a great show. It's only just beginning. We'd like to thank our friends at the Bud One Airship for providing so many of our beautiful sights all week long as we look down. There they are. Hey, guys, give us a look here at the Arizona Center as you have all week. A reminder tonight, as soon as the telecast ends on NBC, a Super Bowl Sunday night special turn right over to ESPN. We'll be there for you, Dan and Sterling and the gang. And then at 11 o'clock Eastern, 9 o'clock local, it's our own Slash show. SportsCenter / Primetime / Cordell Stewart / everything else. That'll be the final primetime of the season. And so all that coming up right after the game. We'll be back with, yes, predictions coming up in a moment. Stay with us here on Super Bowl Good.
The Super Bowl edition of NFL Game Day is brought to you by Rayovac Renewal, reusable alkaline power. Play it smart.
Well, I guess this game has become bigger than the Grand Canyon. Mort is out of the stadium. Got to tell you a story. Walking to work this morning, it's dark, 6:30 this morning. Mort, somebody yells out the car, "Hey, Chris!" I said, "No, I can't sign an autograph. I got to go to work." He said, "No, it's Tagliabue. It's Paul. It's the commissioner. He was up at 6:30 in the dark. We were up. You know it's big. Who do you like?"
Well, Chris, if Neil O'Donnell has the game of his life, I believe the Steelers can win this game. But you know what? The Dallas Cowboys have 5 Hall of Famers still in their prime. I say the Cowboys 35, Steelers 23, and I'm sure Joe disagrees with that.
Mort, you are so accurate in your assumption there. I do disagree with you. I think that Neil O'Donnell is going to have the game of his life. Neil O'Donnell is going to throw for over 300 yards, and I already have the T-shirt that says Steelers Super Bowl champions, Tommy.
The Steelers are the best team in the NFL at scoring in the last 2 minutes of a half. I hope it comes down to that. Dallas 35, Steelers 14.
Let's have some fun. Neil O'Donnell's beard, Kevin Green's locks, the Steelers win by a hair.
I'm going with Buffalo. I'm going with the morning sun when it hits your face really shows your age.
I'm really with him.
Dallas's best players are still young. They're in their prime. Enjoy the game. We'll see you afterward. For Joe and Tom and Sterling, I'm Chris Berman. Thanks for watching Super Bowl Game Day.
At 30 years of age, this biggest of all American sporting events is an integral and defining element of our popular culture.